let's discuss Karen Reed. And we got some interesting grilling done by Alan Jackson on Brian Elbert that we're going to listen to in just a moment. It was another gripping session in the courtroom. As former Boston police officer Brian Elbert was rigorously cross-examined by prosecutor Alan Jackson over the mysterious circumstances surrounding the death of John O'Keefe, whose body was found on Elbert's lawn earlier this year. The courtroom was shown a photograph taken by Karen Reed capturing Elbert and O'Keefe together at the Hillside bar just 6 days before the tragic event, challenging Elbert's earlier claims of limited interaction with Reed. We'll listen to this testimony and talk on the other side.
At that June 2023, and I'm going to talk about a couple of dates, so I don't want to be confusing. At that June 2023 non-Commonwealth hearing, you were asked some questions about whether or not you knew Karen Reed before January 28th, 2022.
I believe
so. That night in question.
I believe so, yes.
And you testified, before you testified, you were sworn an oath.
Yes.
Same oath that you swore that, in this trial, correct?
Yes.
Swore to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
And you knew that you were testifying under penalty of perjury in that hearing as well, correct?
Yes.
And you testified at that non-Commonwealth grand jury that you, quote, believe Karen was with John the night he came into Hillside, a female that looked similar to Karen, from the waterfall came in with him in the, on that night, and I assume that was her, but I can't say for sure, end quote. That was your testimony before that grand jury.
Yes.
But you were also asked a similar question in April of 2022 by Mr. Lally at his grand jury. Do you remember that?
No.
Let's start at the beginning. Before you testified in the April 2022 grand jury, more than a year earlier, and just 3 months after this incident, you were sworn an oath, correct?
Yes.
The same oath that you took in June of 2023, right?
Yes.
And the same oath you took on Friday.
Yes.
Isn't it true that you were asked the question whether or not you knew Karen Reed on January 28th, 2022, and you testified, quote, I've never met or seen her before, end quote.
No, I don't recall that.
Didn't you indicate that you just that you reviewed your grand jury testimony in anticipation for this trial?
Yes.
You'd read the whole thing?
Yes.
And you don't recall making that statement?
No.
May I approach you on it?
Yes, and I'll see counsel at sidebar when you leave that with the witness.
Just please. May I approach you on it?
Yes.
Mr. Albert, have you had an opportunity to review that?
I have. Thank you.
Does that refresh your recollection as to what you said before the grand jury in April of 2022?
Yes, but you didn't read the whole quote though.
Right. The whole quote is the following. Question. So the female you had never met before, is that fair to say? Answer. No. I've never met her or seen her before. Period. Maybe once, but I don't think I've ever had a conversation with her. That was the entire quote, correct?
That's the entire quote, yes. That's not what you read earlier, but yes.
Well, what I read earlier was, I've never met or seen her before. Those words came out of your mouth, correct?
That's not my whole sentence, no.
You said, I've never met or seen her before, and then you said, maybe once, but I've never had a conversation with her, I don't think.
Right, that's my sentence.
Okay, so which is it, Mr. Albert? What were you saying? Were you saying you met her and had a conversation with her? Or were you saying, I've never met or seen her before? Which one of those two things was true?
I was saying that I've met her maybe once.
Actually, what you said was, I've never met her or seen her before. Your words, not my words, sir. Isn't that right?
No, because in the next sentence I say, I met her maybe once.
So you literally changed your testimony within your own testimony.
Objection.
No, can you answer that, Mr. Albert?
I believe I qualified my first sentence with his second sentence.
So what changed between the first sentence, where you indicated unequivocally, I've never met or seen her before, and the second sentence when you said, maybe once?
I'm not sure what I was thinking at the time that I said that.
Isn't it true, Mr. Albert, not only had you met Miss Reed, but you had spent several hours with Karen Reed and John O'Keefe 6 days before this incident? Isn't that true?
No.
In fact, on January 22nd, 2022, 6 days before January 28th, you socialized with Karen Reed at the Hillside bar for several hours, didn't you?
I was at the Hillside bar the week prior, yes.
It was a Saturday night, correct?
Yes.
You were at the bar.
Yes.
There were several other folks at the bar, correct?
Several people, yes.
That included Chris Albert, your brother,
Yes.
a guy named Tim Daly,
Yes.
D-A-I-L-Y, is that right?
I'm not sure how to spell his last name.
Julie Albert was there.
Yes.
Jen McCabe was there.
Yes.
Matt McCabe was there.
Yes.
John O'Keefe was there.
Yes, he was.
And Karen Reed was there. Correct?
Yes, she was.
The grilling by these attorneys, I do not think is coming off well.
No.
It's
No,
like,
it's-
how dare you change your, like, this is how people talk. That's why he said it, because you go, I don't know her. Well, maybe, maybe I've seen her once, or I don't know. Like, this is how people talk about someone they don't really know very well.
Yeah, I agree with that. It turns into a gotcha moment when they read it verbatim versus if they were to hear somebody say in casual conversation, like what you just said. So here's the gotcha moment. How is it going to play out with the jury? That's what I want to know. Are they seeing it for how we're seeing it?
It's not.
I don't know.
It's not coming across well. It's coming across very gotcha. And it's clearly like, if I only read half of this sentence, you said this, right? Well, not in context, no. Like you need, and then he corrects, then he like explains the whole context, and they still keep going like it wasn't even addressed. And I don't know. It's just very nails on a chalkboard. They're not likable at all. And you do need to be likable, especially in a case like this, because nobody is looking at the Karen Reed as like some evil human being here. Most people are assuming it was probably an accident. She doesn't remember it, and now she doesn't want to get in trouble for it. Not necessarily a murderer. And there's no evidence to really show that any of these officers or the friends of Brian Albert would have had any reason to beat him up or plot some sort of conspiracy either. But it's being treated like it's some sort of real, horrific murder case. There was a lot of intent behind it. And it's just not that. And I don't think it's going to play well for Karen Reed. It says, quote, you knew you would have a lot to answer for when Karen Reed's boyfriend ended up dead on your lawn 6 days later, Jackson questioned pointedly. A query immediately met with an objection from defense attorney Alan Lally. The objection was sustained by Judge Beverly Cannone, but the tone was set for the secession full of tense exchanges. The cross-examination delved deeply into the events leading up to O'Keefe's death, including a late-night phone call made by Albert to Brian Higgins, which Albert described in an inadvertent butt dial. Jackson was skeptical of this and other explanations provided by Albert, particularly regarding a video showing him and Higgins in what seemed like a rehearsed fight at the Waterfall bar. At some point, did you flip him around and put him in a wrestling hold? Jackson asked, to which Albert replied he did not remember. Further complicating matters for Albert was his admission that he had upgraded his phone shortly after being told to preserve it for court evidence, a move Jackson suggested was more of a mere coincidence. This was compounded by the revelation that Albert had listed his home for sale and rehomed his family's German Shepherd, which had been part of the discussions about the nature of O'Keefe's injuries. Despite the intense scrutiny, Albert maintained his innocence, suggesting any connections made by the prosecution were mere coincidences. The defense countered the prosecution's narrative, emphasizing the lack of concrete evidence directly linking Albert to any criminal actions in the death of O'Keefe. Let's take a listen to that exchange about the phone in the testimony.
Mr. Lally said that the defense had filed a motion to ask for the phones to be preserved.
And anything else?
That's what I remember him saying.
Did you volunteer that, oh my goodness, I just upgraded my phone last week conveniently. I don't have that phone anymore.
No.
Now, let's just pause there for a second. I'm going to play more of it. So he upgraded his phone prior to getting this order. Now, he did not admit at that moment in time, but he wasn't asked either, do you still have the phone? But he upgraded his phone. And in the world of cell phones, most people upgrade their phones on a fairly regular basis. It's not that suspicious to do, quite honestly. But let's continue on.
You didn't say that to Mr. Lally?
No.
You just took the information that he gave you and hung up the phone and went about your business?
Yes.
Without notifying him that the very phone that he had just ordered you to preserve had just been destroyed days earlier?
No, the phone wasn't destroyed. I upgraded the phone.
You have a phone. That's an iPhone.
Years.
How many times have you upgraded your iPhone?
Multiple times.
Every single time you upgraded. You know that the phone prior, the data's destroyed on it, correct?
Usually my contacts come over and my photos come over. So
that's a backup.
no, I don't think I have that on backup, but okay.
Irrespective, you didn't tell Mr. Lally that you had gotten rid of that phone.
I was not asked that, and I didn't tell him that.
I see. You felt like if you weren't asked that, you didn't need to volunteer it, even though the conference call was specifically about preserving your phone pursuant to a judge's order. Correct?
What was the question?
You didn't offer to Mr. Lally that you had gotten rid of the very phone that he was telling you had to be preserved due to a judge's order.
I did not.
And here's another little factoid that they're really making this a big deal out of really nothing. The phone company has all this information. It's not.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. So you can change your phone. You can throw it in a lake. They're still going to be able to extract data from the cloud.
Yeah.
So good luck with that.
When we're talking about like the data, the roaming data and the moving and all of that, that's already backed up. That's already somewhere else. It's not just on that device. But if you make it sound really exciting to the jury, and oh my God, he's this horrible person because he upgraded his phone, it looks pretty bad. But at the end of the day, I think these people were just going about their lives, and they're really stretching here to make this conspiracy look legit. And every single day, I think they are missing the mark. Here they try and tie him with Brian Higgins, who also upgraded his phone at a certain time, and trying to tie them together as, did they upgrade it? Did they talk about upgrading their phones at some point in time in some sort of a conspiracy? Like, if you upgrade your phone, a lot of times you're like, hey, got a new phone. Oh, cool. You know, you're going to upgrade yours? Yeah, probably. I'm going to get a new one here soon. That's essentially the extent of the conversation. But when put in this context, it's like, oh my God. Take a listen.
Did you and Brian Higgins agree with each other that you were both going to get rid of your phones?
Objection.
I'll allow that.
No.
You testified at the other hearing in June of 2022, quote, I don't recall saying that I was going to get rid of my personal phone to Brian Higgins. I may have said that. You know, there's personal stuff on my personal phone, but I don't recall saying that to him, but I don't know. We had multiple conversations about things, end quote. You remember testifying to that?
Yes.
So you're not ruling out the fact that you may have told Brian Higgins that you intended to get rid of your phone, correct?
No.
You're not ruling out the fact that Brian Higgins may have told you that he intended to get rid of his phone?
No, I don't remember him saying that to me.
You're aware that Brian Higgins has also gotten rid of his phone, correct?
I am not aware of that until after the time you're talking about.
So, without qualifying your answer my question. As you sit here, you're aware that Brian Higgins has also gotten rid of his phone.
I know at some point, Brian
Yes or no, Mr. Albert?
did he?
Objection, Your Honor.
Can you answer that, yes or no, sir?
Yes.
It's, I don't know. This is not going to play well for Karen Reed.
You know, it's interesting. I had a discussion with a guy you and I both know, my former morning partner, Dave. We talked for probably an hour today about me upgrading my phone. It's, you know, in the world, maybe 15 years ago, it really wasn't a reason to be upgrading your phone all the time. But if you're an iPhone user, for the love of God, they keep coming out with new editions, new models that are just, they blow the former one away. It's easy to sit and talk about it, especially it would be interesting to see what time of year this upgrade happened. September is when Apple releases most of their new stuff. So it could be, I saw a fabulous ad from Apple and I said, shit, I got to have that phone. I mean, that's piece of cake. That's how that shit happens.
This just doesn't read like someone is lying. It just sounds like, you know, a Boston guy that's like, no, this is what we did. And, you know, like, what's the big deal? Like, it's just very straightforward. I think there's, I don't know. There's so many things that are really missing the mark here. I feel like these attorneys need to do an air check on themselves, like go back and watch their testimony and go, because a lot of it is getting really, really cringy. Again, I have not made up my mind. I don't know what happened here. My guess at this point is, again, that Karen Reed hit him on accident, and that's what it is. I'm interested to see the rest of the testimony, but they need to take a step back and look at how they're handling it.
Want to listen ad-free? Want advanced access to all of our interviews before anyone else?
Become a True Crime Today Premium Plus subscriber on Apple Podcasts.
You get every episode commercial-free.
So you can binge on true crime
until you can binge no more.
Search True Crime Today Premium Plus on Apple Podcasts now, or go to our podcast page and sign up now.
More of the Hidden Killers podcast next.